You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
This is the CRM Archaeology Podcast. It's the show where we pull back the veil of cultural resources management, archaeology, and discuss the issues that everyone is concerned about. Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to CRM Archaeology Podcast episode 335. Today I'm joined by
Yes, by and with Dr. Andrew Kinkella.
Dr. Andrew Kinkella.
Right.
In Southern California, and I'm sitting today in Central California. And today we just thought we would talk about travel, tips and tricks for traveling. How does a project manager see your traveling? How can you be arranging your travel when you're going to project sites that are, not in your local area? Because I think a lot of times project managers or whoever you're directly reporting to, sometimes I'm noticing people do not share these things. And then they get resentful over the amount of time that people are billing when you're not even helping people understand what is the best. How do you plan your travel? So it's economical. It makes sense. It's not too it's not draining on the person who's doing the travel. And so I think, for me, I've actually dealt recently where we brought on a few as needed, all in a short period of time. And one in particular, just terrific, just a great guy, such a great attitude, but he's new. And he had never been on an airplane.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was kind of neat that he was on an airplane for the first time. Actually, I think he said he was on an airplane was real little, but that was once, and he doesn't really remember it. And so he had never, and he's in his 30s. And it was shocking to me but it was really kind of fun to be able to give him that experience, and he's loving it, but he felt very insecure. And I think people that are supervising, especially as needed, they need to understand that it can be intimidating to ask some questions, and you don't want, a lot of times, the one thing I say, 3 magic words to make you successful in anything, and very much so in archaeology, is I don't know.
I've never said that. That's weird, but I guess that works for other people.
And for me, I always encourage that safe space. If you don't know, I'd rather you tell me you don't know. And as a manager, you need to make sure you have a safe place for that, people understand that they can just come to you and say, I don't know how to do this. And that's okay. So,
yes. Yeah. And if they come to me, of course, I'll be like, what? You've never been on a plane before, you poor person? Oh, that's gross. Right. No, I know.
It's going to work for me and not Andrew.
I know. I totally agree with you, Heather. I always appreciate when people just ask. And I know it can be embarrassing. We've all had that experience, And
it's funny because he actually he didn't have any money. He didn't have a credit card. That's another thing people should not be assuming, that people have credit cards. Yeah.
And credit cards aren't all they're cracked up to be, it's a give and take there.
And you can certainly get points. And so that's, for me, I'm flexible. We'll work with you and make the purchases of the airplane tickets and stuff like that. Yeah. Some people they want to do that. And I learned over time, before I wouldn't talk to people. And after having this experience, not this specific experience, but having an experience where somebody was afraid to say they didn't have enough money to purchase travel, plane tickets and whatever, I realized, wait a minute, not everybody wants to use their credit card. Some don't even have a credit card.
Right.
And so you have to give them that permission. You have to say, listen, if you want to purchase it on your card and get points, that's cool. If you don't want to do that and you would rather have the company purchase it outright so you don't have that money out, please let me know and we'll do that. Yeah. But that's something that, you have to have some forethought with. And so he didn't understand the concept. He just thought, I'll get the cheapest flight possible.
Yeah.
And I think most people would do that, right? Okay, I'm going to get the cheapest flight possible. But the cheapest flight possible might take 6 hours to get to the same destination.
I know.
Would take you 2 hours. Yep. But because the cheaper tickets has a stopover, they're thinking,
I
"Oh, well,
know.
it's still a cheaper ticket. I don't mind the layover." But the cost of paying you for that travel time is significantly more than the
Yeah.
savings of the ticket.
Yeah. And dude, I'm laughing because I used to do all that stuff, when I was young. I mean, talk about penny wise and pound foolish. I remember taking an overnight red eye flight
Yeah.
on the world's worst airline. This was international, you guys. This was an El Salvadoran airline to save, wait for it, $40.
Oh my goodness.
40. But that's the mindset of like a
Yes.
22-year-old,
Yes, exactly.
And it was so dumb. I think back, I'm like, what was I doing? But it just takes time. You just have to screw up and then go, oh, right. I get the idea of buying the cheap ticket. Totally.
Yeah. And I think, it's that travel time. First of all, companies should be paying you for your travel time. I hope that's happening. If that's not happening, you need to, either ask. And that's the other thing is I think I've had people that didn't charge for their travel time. And I looked and I noticed, wait a minute, this doesn't seem like there's travel time on here. So I had to let them know, make sure and that was a lesson on my part. That might have been, kind of an awkward question for them to ask. I think it's a fair question, but on their perspective, they may have thought it was awkward. So they didn't ask me. And then here they should be. And, they should be paid for their travel time. And let's say we didn't do it. I didn't catch that. Now they have in their brain, they don't get paid travel time. And guess what?
Yeah.
Another company comes along, tells them, we pay you travel time. Guess which company they're not going to work for anymore.
Of course. Yeah, that is so important to just make that stuff obvious because different companies are different. And with travel time, is it both ways? Is it one way? I still don't understand all that stuff, depending on who I'm working with.
So a company should always pay you travel time.
Both ways?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They should always pay you travel. I mean, you're asking them to travel. Now, there's a caveat to that. If I've had somebody who said, I really want to work in California, but I don't need somebody in California. Let's say we have plenty of people in California.
Yeah.
But that person wants the experience to work in California. If I have everything's the same and we have staff and we don't need to charge or we don't need somebody to come in from out of state, then if they want to work and they want to get that experience, I'm 100% behind it. But then that travel would be on them because they're asking for that experience.
Mm-hmm.
So you see the difference.
That's very fair. Yeah, that makes sense.
And, here's the other thing, like travel. Let's say you have somebody who's, let's say, an hour and a half away from a project site. And you have to look at it. Sometimes it makes more sense to have them stay at a hotel. And I've had people that are like, I really want to stay in my bed,
Right.
And then you have to make a decision as the manager, what's the difference here? Sometimes it's just a matter of $40 more, maybe. I'm just throwing out a number for them to be able to stay in their own bed. They're happy to do the driving. They are responsible. They're going to be there on time.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, you know what? If that makes you more comfortable, go ahead and do that. But if it's a significant difference in the charge, it makes more sense to have somebody stay near the project site if they're that far away.
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing you have to think about as a manager is if somebody's working a long day and then they have to drive another hour, an hour and a half after that, is that safe for them?
Right.
So these are all things that I think, should be a conversation between the person who's working, who's going to do all that work, and the manager. And there needs to find a happy medium that works for both.
I used to be just like that, though. For the CRM gigs, I used to try no matter what to come home. You know what I mean? Yeah. I would do that thing. I'd be like, well, now I'm done. Now I'm going to drive 2 hours and then I'll turn around in the morning and wake up at 5 and drive 2 hours back, and I get why I did it. I get that drive on at the same moment. It is more comfortable just to stay or split the difference, where you stay a few days, but then, it's doing that every day is brutal.
Yeah, I think, again, it's a safety thing. Now, I understand people are like, well, I'd rather get paid to travel than not get paid to sit in a hotel. And so some people would rather do the drive. To me, there's an amount of time of travel where it's an absolute no, you're going to stay near the project site, or we'll find somebody else that wants to stay near the project site. But if it's right on the cusp, then I usually will let them make that decision and what they prefer. Because when I was an as needed, I'd much rather get paid to travel than and it's better for the company too. We can, the expenses are, those are just direct costs that are passed on to the client, hopefully.
Right.
And you don't make any money or markup on it, right? So the company is also better off charging for the travel time.
I worked for companies who made money off it because they screwed me, on the travel time, like the government, they'd pay me less.
Oh, so that's
like mileage.
I know
they
you're saying
skim the mileage.
Or I've seen companies, I'll just say I've seen companies, I was going to go a little further, that will charge you less for your drive time. Right. So let's say you get paid, you get $30 an hour to work on site, and then the travel time, they're paying you $15 an hour.
Right.
And to me, I did work for a company that did that, and I said no.
Yeah.
Not to me. It wasn't me. For the people that were reporting to me, I'm like, I'm not going to do that to them. That's wrong. Right. And even if that's in the contract that you have with the client, then maybe you eat that. You eat the extra, and maybe the company's not making as much money, but to give people like $15 an hour, and that was kind of what they were doing. It was $15. Right. That is, my time is not less valuable because I'm driving a car. Maybe I'm not using my skill sets driving the car, but my time's valuable. No matter what you are asking me to do, you still should be paying me the same amount.
Right.
Yeah. So,
see, that's so funny. When I was doing CRM, I would have taken that deal. I would have been like, oh, great. Because I was so used to just getting nothing for, Bill and I always commiserate about this kind of stuff. I think we had very similar experiences because we got used to being so screwed all the time. That when, if somebody went, we'll pay you half to drive, I'd be like, yes, And
I get that. I did that too. I'm not saying I didn't do that.
Yeah.
But now I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where I can say no to doing that to others.
Yeah.
Right. Like
for me, and that's great.
I can be an ally and I can say, no, we're not going to do that because that's my decision.
Yeah.
But I think, awesome. We'll be right back with segment 2. Welcome back to CRM Archaeology Podcast episode 335. And today we're talking about travel, things that, as an employee should think about, and those that are employers, managers, how they can, be fair with travel and how you treat those that are reporting to you. And Andrew, you were thinking about plane travel and.
Yes, just airfare and stuff in general, because, in 2026. So things are changing, my friends, in terms of cost for everything. And we know the cliches with gas prices and all that kind of stuff. But man, some of just the airfare in general has really gone up,
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's amazing how
I had to buy a ticket for Belize, right? I'm going to Belize for a couple of days just for a conference. And I have never spent more, than I did this time. So, and, in terms of how much more, it's a solid, I'd say a solid 25 or 30% more, that kind of thing, that world. It's a lot. So, if it used to be $600, now it's $800. It's that kind of thing is sort of what I'm noticing. So just beware, my friends, beware. I've just been dealing with a lot of this because it's my daughter graduated from high school recently and she's been doing some traveling with friends and, so I'm helping her with some of her stuff and just going through the airplane world of stuff is a bit of an eye opener. I will say I've noticed 2 things that I hadn't noticed before. Thing number 1, and this was specifically with United, and I don't know if other companies will do this. I was able to use partial miles to take off some money from my ticket. Like that was pretty cool. That's the first time I've ever been able to do that, because always with like miles and points and stuff, I'm always like, I don't fly enough to make any. Oh, good. I can buy one-way ticket from San Francisco to Oakland. You know, the points thing never does anything for me, specifically for airline travel. But this is the one time where I'm like, oh, they'll let me just cash in this partial miles and I'll get like $200 off. Like that's cool. So that was neat. That was the first time I've ever seen them do that. The other thing I've seen is always check, you guys, for the price for first class. I can't remember if I've ever talked about this on here before or not, but
I want to hear this.
Okay, dude. So I got turned on to this by one of my old archaeology friends, my friend Lisa Lucero, who I worked with in Belize for decades. I love Lisa. But
did you work there and in, was it Illinois?
Oh, yeah. Well, Lisa's in Illinois. Like Lisa's at Urbana-Champaign. Got it. Okay. So, but she's who I've done the whole Belize thing with since the 90s. But I was talking to her recently at like I saw one of the last conferences or something. And we were talking about plane flight. And I was like, blah, 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 first class. And she's like, oh, Andrew, like I always fly first class. I'm like, what? You? Right. Because Lisa can really rough it. You know, like she's tough. But she has this whole system where like you can go online and like track first class flight prices and stuff. And you can wait until they dip. And it's this whole secret world, friends. Secret world of.
Okay. I want to learn more about this because you say that and then I got something to add.
No, so I had taken a first class flight like a year ago or something because I had a leftover ticket. And let's say I had $500 and I was going to go buy a new ticket. And it was, of course, to a much shorter location, a much closer location. And so actually the first class ticket ended up still being less than the credit I had. So I was like, I'll fly first class. You guys don't do this because once you fly first class, you can't go back. You can't. You think you're hardcore. I think I'm hardcore. I'm not hardcore. I'm weak. I'm weak and worthless. Like, dude, flying first class transforms a flight from a grudge match to like a joy. It makes me feel like I'm in Mad Men. You know, you're like, oh, I have leg room. This seat's comfortable. Like I can just chill. It's amazing. So that's the other thing I've noticed is always check it because sometimes the upgrade to first class might only be $200 or something like this, you know, for a shorter flight where you're like, that might be, I would totally pay that now. Now you're going to get screwed if you're trying to find a first class ticket to Hawaii. You know what I mean? Like it's still going to be expensive. It's still going to be pretty expensive. But some of these domestic ones, don't fear the first class because I always used to. And some of these airlines too have these kind of business / first class things where it's not true first class, but it's miles nicer. So that's my little note to the world. Just look for it. Even half, like if you have a layover, your first leg might be first class, you know, like, so just always look for those deals. So, you know, as we talk, I just have to say, thank you, Lisa, for this knowledge.
I'm curious a little bit more how to do that. But I think the one thing to remember, so if you end up doing first class, you'd have to prove, because that might raise some eyebrows when you're
for a CRM. Like a pure business thing. I wouldn't. That wouldn't be my first step. I wouldn't do that. But in general, you know, or if you can specifically tell them, oh, I see you've given me this money for a coach seat, I will be using my own money to upgrade to first class. You know, because that's going to be on your time.
You can do that. And there are times where, let's say you were able to find a first class and it was the same price or something with some of these deals that you're finding. You just have to show, you have to have proof. Otherwise they're not going to, I don't know what they would do. Every company's different, but you know, I know like the company I work for, you can't go and put on additions. You cannot go into first class. They don't allow that.
Right.
Now, if I get enough points, then, and I'm upgraded to first class and there's no charge, then I can do that. I just would show if either first class doesn't show on my ticket, or I would just have to show them, okay, there was no additional charge for first class. It just got upgraded. It was a free upgrade. Then just make sure that you document that. And, you know, there's times where I'll go up to the desk. I'll get there early and I'll go up and I'll say, are there any seats in the exit rows that, and if you get changed and there's no extra additional charge, then that's great, right? Sometimes they need to move people, especially when you're just one person. And I actually have been upgraded to first class because they overbooked the flight and they had people, but they had room in first class. So they offered me to be bumped up to first class. And I mean, and it didn't cost me anything. It was beautiful, man. Yeah, awesome. It's a huge difference. I actually had that happen once on an international flight years ago.
Oh, dude.
Oh my gosh. It was unbelievable. It was so nice.
Yeah, it's so funny. We started this podcast talking about someone who's flying for the first time and immediately go to like, this is how to get into first class.
Tips and tricks. Work in the system.
And I have to say, I am fully deserving of the very rare times that I've flown first class, because you guys, I have flown bargain basement. I dare you to get lower on flights than the ones I've taken. Actually, I don't dare you, because that plane's going to crash. So don't try and be like me.
I would say there's a Frontier flies out of LAX. Yeah. And so Frontier, oh my gosh, they've changed now. If you fly out of LAX, they changed that where you have to take a shuttle on the tarmac to get to another terminal spot in order. So you check in one terminal, but they bring you to another terminal. And it is absolutely not worth it, because they will sit there and wait until that bus is filled with people. And you can actually, you can end up being very close to not making your flight, because you don't know. You could sit on that bus and wait 5 minutes for the bus to take you over to your terminal. You could literally wait for 20 minutes or more for that bus to actually take off, because they feel they have enough people. And it is just, it's not worth it. There's situations like that where it's a super bottom barrel flight. It's just not worth it. And I would never require people to take these bottom basement.
JetBlue is the worst company on earth. I don't care if they sue me. They are freaking awful. I had a horrible experience. I was trapped in New York City literally for like 2.5 days. It was amazingly bad.
Oh my gosh. And that's the other thing is, if you can do a nonstop. Yeah,
of course.
Also know where you fly. Like I'm in California. And I fly a lot. I would say almost every week now I'm flying to all different parts, mostly domestic, but sometimes international. And I will say sometimes I don't have a choice, because if I fly out of where I live in Santa Barbara, if I fly out of that, there's a lot of flights that are not nonstop. And so sometimes I'll go down to LAX, I'll fly out of there, or I will fly out of Santa Barbara, but there's some airports that I try to avoid if I can. One of them being San Francisco. And the reason I don't want a connection to San Francisco is because they're so subject to the fog, that airport, that it can be delayed, and then that can impact your ability to make your next connection. And that is just not the way you want to start or finish a trip. Is running through an airport to try to make your next connection. And I've had it where I didn't make the connection and I ended up stuck in an airport because the next flight they had out was the next morning. I missed the last flight out and I had to wait in the airport for hours. And I could have gone to a hotel room, but what am I going to do? I'm going to go to a hotel room, sleep for 2 hours.
I've done that before.
Yeah. To me, it just didn't make sense. So I didn't do it and I just stuck it out. But that's just those, if you can avoid a connection, definitely, even if it's more money, avoid a connection.
Oh, totally. And again, I'm just sending this out to the world. Please, everyone hearing my voice, don't buy tickets from cheap airlines. Go for the quote unquote regular airlines, be it Delta or United. You guys know the list, American, right? They're at least kind of sort of professional. I will say that I had a horrible experience with United 17 years ago, and United was on my blacklist, which is a very short list. Blacklist of companies. I'm I will buy nothing from them. But I didn't buy a United ticket.
I've done that to Home Depot once.
Yeah. I bought nothing for a decade, but I finally got teased back because I had such horrible experiences with these other crap airlines. So I'm okay. Oh, the one other thing I wanted to say, I just was reminded one last thing about the whole first class thing. Let's say it costs $300 to bump up the first class. You're also saving a bit more money because what's included with first class will be stuff like checked bags, whereas your regular ticket, you're going to have to pay like 50 or 75 or $100 for like each checked bag. So think about that too. And it goes with the saving. And it's funny how it becomes more and more reasonable, especially for the shorter flights.
And so so I fly United a lot just because that brings up two things. Number one, I try to fly the same flights as much as I can.
Yeah.
Because then I'm earning points. Mm-hmm. If you're going to get a credit card, it's great to get an airline credit card because you earn a lot more points.
I disagree. I think it's better to get a credit card that is cash back. But if you fly a ton, you are correct.
So
it's good.
I'll put a show note because you're right. We did a really great, and you have some awesome advice as far as credit cards and stuff. We have an episode that I know we talked about that. So we'll put that in our show notes.
Yeah, that was really
fun. For people to revisit that episode. That was a good episode. But so if you decide to get a credit card and for your airline travel, then fine. If you do that, you can just focus on one airline. You got to be reasonable. You're not going to be paying $400 more per ticket so you can go on this one airline. But I try to weigh it out.
I do that too.
Yeah.
One other thing that teased me back to Continental is, I don't know if you guys will remember or not, or sorry, teased me back to United, was that they merged Continental.
Continental's
I used to really like Continental. Yeah. So it's like when they merged, I'm like, okay, I can go back to United because Continental is a part of it, and so that can help sometimes. And I feel like it did kind of help United. I don't know. I feel like the goodness of Continental did boost them a little bit.
Yeah. You know what? We'll be right back with segment 3 and finish up some more tips and tricks for travel. We'll be right back. Welcome back to CRM Archaeology Podcast, episode 335. And today we're talking about traveling for work, some tips and tricks. The one thing that when you're looking at flights, like you were saying, there's some things that are included that good to take into consideration. And when you're buying tickets, there's some airlines that actually still allow a carry-on. So, and that's one of these, bottom barrel airlines where they charge you for everything. Really, when you think about it, it actually ends up being around the same cost. Yeah. And it works for some people. They can do a trip with just their backpack. And so that makes sense. But if you're somebody that does need a piece of luggage, and if you are working in the field and you need several, changes of clothes, then you're really going to need a suitcase, even if it's like a carry-on suitcase, and a backpack is just not going to be good enough. So making sure that you take into account that you'll need to pay, either it's included in the cost or it's not. For me, I highly recommend trying to get everything into one carry-on luggage, making sure that your carry-on luggage actually is the size that's going to be allowed by that line. That's one thing and generally those airlines have, they're the same. The carry-on size is the same.
Yes. Although I just want to break it. I was literally doing this last night, like with my daughter. So you do want to look up your airline because the sizes are slightly different. So I actually know Delta's size is 22 by I believe it was either 13 or 14 by 9, right? Yes. Which is the normal, smaller rolling suitcase. That's what you're looking at.
And then also remember that the suitcase, they will say, there's like these little things that can really get you. The wheels are included.
Yep.
The handle is included, that they're not measuring like the suitcase, where you put your clothes in, they're measuring everything. So just remember that. So when you're getting a suitcase, making sure that you're getting a suitcase that's the right size. The other thing that I would say is, airlines change things. So do not assume every time you get a flight, make sure, especially right now, they're trying to save on costs of gas and things like that. And they're trying to make up for how much more it costs them without having to pass on all those cost increases in the actual, price of the fare. they're putting those up a little bit, but then maybe they're charging more for the add-ons. So just making sure that don't assume that everything is the same. Make sure you know that every time you book something that it is what you think it's going to be. Another thing that I've noticed a lot more now is because I don't pay for the extra priority seating, a lot of times I'll get there, I'll be like one of the last groups that's coming onto the plane, which I'm fine with. I don't like sitting in the plane any longer than I have to.
Yeah,
so to me, I'm fine with being group 9, being the last one. Right. But the one bad thing, and sometimes even if I am group 2, I'll still wait because I'm like doing work in the lobby of the airport. But a lot of times, if you're one of the last ones, they'll force you to check your carry-on.
Yep.
So they'll take it at the end of the jet bridge, right? And then you get it when you arrive. Either they'll give it to you or you'll have to go to baggage claim. So that adds more time. But the other thing is, I have a little sack of jewelry and I don't like having to put it in my computer bag because it's one more thing.
Yeah.
So I always put it in my carry-on. But remember that when you do that, I do not trust the airlines.
I can't believe you wouldn't trust that.
I've had things stolen out of my suitcase and I've actually lost suitcases. And it is,
me too.
I have jewelry that's like heirloom jewelry to me that was my mom's or my grandma's. And I would be absolutely heartsick if I lost it. So if you have things that are valuable to you, put them at the top of the suitcase so that if they do require you to check your carry-on, that you can quickly pull that out and then go on your merry way and hope you still have your luggage on the other side. But at least even if you do lose the luggage, you're not losing something that's really important to you.
Right. Or good God, don't take it in the first place unless you absolutely have to.
Yeah, I was going to say, when I'm traveling, I have client meetings. And so, I try to look my best. And,
oh, no, of course.
That includes jewelry for women. That includes jewelry. So, yeah, I mean, but I really don't like carrying it in my...
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying, but it's like, in a perfect world, it would be like you have some jewelry that's not as meaningful to you. Because in archaeology, I always tell people, man, whatever you bring, just make sure it's cheap, durable, and replaceable.
Yeah.
And that's it. I tend to travel very light, although I have found as I get older that I do need to look a certain way and I can't just come in ripped jeans and a t-shirt, and so that is the thing. And speaking of old episodes, we did an episode on like the dapper archaeologist or whatever, what to wear. And so the more of that you have to do, of course, the more luggage space that takes, and so that is one of those moments where it's like, don't be penny wise and pound foolish. Do spend the $50 for the checked bag and just, take the good suit. It's worth it.
For me, I really try not to check my bags because number one, that means you have to get there much earlier.
Yep.
And sometimes I'm just squeezing all the time out that I can.
Yeah.
So doing the carry-on definitely cuts down the amount of time I have to be at an airport beforehand. Yeah. The other is, it is an extra cost. So I do encourage people that work for us, if they can keep everything in a carry-on, it's good because if you lose that check bag, you're out of luck now, and it adds so much extra time that you have to, and it does happen. It happens regularly. So having the carry-on, even if they end up taking it at the jet bridge, they usually will put it back. Like it doesn't go to the baggage claim typically. Sometimes it will, but typically it doesn't. So, and it's not, the extra cost, especially if you're using an airline where the carry-on's included. So,
yeah. I'm going to travel in pretty quickly here in sort of a couple of days to Belize, but just for a handful of days. But I'm going to do only carry-on. One of the main reasons is one of the flights, I of course have to change flights. The change is like 46 minutes or something like that. It's like really scary, so I don't want anything to go wrong. And I know that usually bags are checked all the way through, but sometimes when you're changing planes in your country and then about to go international at that point, sometimes, you have to get your bag and recheck it and all this. It just depends. But I just don't want to deal with any of that. So I want to travel light and quick because I have a couple really tight situations I have to get through.
I think it's interesting. I know some people, there might be some kickback on this. I personally, since I do travel so much, and as you're moving up the ranks, if you end up traveling more and you're not necessarily traveling for, purposes of field work, doing work on the plane, doubling up on your time, your travel time, if you want to do the travel and you want to have assignments where you're going to travel, the employee who's doing work while they're traveling and you're getting, some tasks done that maybe don't require internet, because internet, I'm just finding, is just like so patchy on airplanes.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Even if you pay for it,
chances of success
can't count on it.
Low.
So I do everything on my desktop. But I really think even if you're just reading and reviewing, and if you can double up on that travel time, to me, it's a professional move. It is beneficial overall for those that do that. And I know that they're getting more out of that travel time, because that travel time, a lot of times, is not billable. And the more billable you are, that's just the nature of our business. The more billable you are, the more valuable you become, right? And sometimes the travel time, you're getting paid for that travel time, but it's not billable to the project. And that is something that people need to consider. Like if you want to go to a conference, let's say, and I think conferences are sometimes a good use of company expenditure and sometimes it's not. And, I know there's different feelings on this, but if you can work a little bit while you're there and, have a happy medium where you can go to the conference and get some work done, so you are partially billable, that's a win-win. So you're getting to go to the conference, but you're also billing some time. That's going to probably guarantee that you'll be able to do more conferences. But if you want to do conferences and you're also not willing, okay, I'm at a conference, it's going to be 8 hours of non-billable time, then just remember, you may not be able to go on as many conferences as you would like.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I don't think that a lot of these meetings, the annual meetings that we go to, are all that professionally, valuable. A lot of times, people are going, I think the conferences that are more valuable are when you're doing cross-discipline conferences.
That's a complex thing that we've talked about before. Yeah. You were saying you might get some pushback. You're going to get some pushback from Dr. Andrew Kinkella right now. Okay. Are you prepared? I agree in theory with what you're saying. But, as I get older, I'm like, know thyself. And I will think things like, yeah, okay, it's a 5-hour flight. I have 4 hours worth of work to do, and I'm going to go do that on this flight. But you know what? I'm not going to. You know why? Because I'm tired, because I just need to chill because, oh my God, it's 5:45 in the morning. I caution of that attitude. Like Heather, for you, I totally get what you're saying. And I would say that Heather, your way of doing things is the good way of doing things. But in reality, it's I just wouldn't. Yeah. I know.
That's me. I'm not, listen, I do not, when people are working on projects that I'm managing, they're directly reporting to me. I do not say you must do work on flights. I don't say that.
I don't want people to feel like they need to do that, because that just turns something that could be okay into a brutal situation, because I wouldn't want that.
I know somebody that I've worked with that when they go on a trip, they do no work, no billable work at all.
Yeah.
And they don't always need to go on that trip. That trip's kind of an extra thing that they would like to go on. And when you're looking at somebody who could also go on that trip, but that they're going to try to get some work done while they're on that trip. So when you're at a conference, and the conference, there's maybe not all of these, presentations are valuable. So maybe you only go select presentations that are valuable for you, for your learning and for your networking. But then you, on the side, you say, okay, I'm going to do about 5 hours, but I'm going to reserve 3 hours to really hone in and work on some billable stuff. And it's not just about being billable. It's also about not falling behind.
Yeah, well, yeah. And again, there's a happy medium with some of that, but I wouldn't want there to be this understood secret, semi-secret idea of like, well, if you go, you better be doing billable hours on the fly while you're changing planes. It gets.
Yeah, but I'm talking about at the hotel, you're at the conference. I do choose to work on the plane. That's my choice. Right. That's not something I would expect anyone to do. I'm not expecting people.
Oh, and my last thing on that, sometimes it'll make people airsick too when they, focusing on a computer and stuff.
Sometimes it's actually a waste. You actually don't really get a whole lot of time done or a lot of work done. But sometimes it works. It works for me. It doesn't work for everybody.
I'm jealous of that. Like, I think that's great that you get to do that, because I try, because sometimes flights are boring and you're like, yeah, I'll take an hour and like do some work. But then I just sit there and I'm like, oh, I'll just watch, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids for the third time.
But the concept, when you're at these conferences, really making sure, because there's, I've worked with people that they get so far behind when they go to these conferences that the people they're reporting to are just saying, you know what, it's not worth sending so-and-so to a conference, because they literally check out for the entire time they're there. They do not respond to their emails. And, sometimes it depends on your workload, and you have to know yourself and you have to know your workload. And so sometimes it just doesn't make sense. And if you want to go to these conferences, let's be honest. Some of the conferences are helpful and sometimes they're not. They're just something that's a nice perk. Mm-hmm. Not all conferences are great learning opportunities. Yeah. And some of them aren't even good networking opportunities. So like being selective and where you're going, if you want to go to conferences, you want to travel, you enjoy the travel part of our business, then just make sure that you're doing it smartly, so that when you do ask and you do raise your hand for that opportunity, that you are the one that's going to get selected.
Yeah, of course. And I would say there's a difference between I get having billable hours if the company is paying for you to go to the conference. I get that. See, because I'm coming at it from. Yeah, I come at it from a different side where I'm like, I always just pay my whole own conference thing. So I'm not going to do any work. I just paid for No, I get that. See, I was thinking about my own. You see, I'm a narcissist. I was just thinking about myself. Okay, we need to know this. But no, in that case, if your company is paying for you to go to this conference, I get it. But I think I would just say then to just be really honest with yourself and sort of set it up beforehand of like, okay, I'm going to do 4 hours of billable work on this day at this time doing that. I totally get that. So see, we thought we were apart. Now we're coming together. See?
So I would say, just to end this segment and the podcast in general, with one more thing, when you are traveling, this is an opportunity to, if it is something you want to do, it is an opportunity to see other places. And so, I find sometimes you're just too tired, right? At the end of the field day, that's fine. But if you're not, and you have an opportunity to go and explore, if you're a foodie, to go and try new places, or if, you like to go to historic areas, and definitely take advantage. Also, don't think you have to go to certain hotels. You can, if you want to go to a hotel that you have points for, great. Or somebody turned me on to a hotel in Phoenix. It is such a cool hotel. And it is, I'm trying to remember, what is it called? And typically I do a Marriott's or a Marriott Bonvoy type hotel so I can get my points. Yeah. But this one, I'm actually making an exception because it's such a cool vibe. And it's a great hotel. It's called The Foundry in Phoenix. And it's just super cool. It's a great place. So, you're not going to pick hotels. They're going to be, more expensive. But if within the range you can find a fun hotel, it just makes the travel easier. Even if you're in the field, if you can find for a comparable price, a more fun hotel. For me, one of my favorite things is if I'm going like into the boondocks somewhere in the middle of nowhere, I try to find a bed and breakfast because it's just so much more enjoyable to me to do a bed and breakfast. You get to know the host and everything.
Right.
It's a richer experience. So,
Right.
take advantage of that travel and make the most of it. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah, so do take time to sightsee, but just make sure to bring your computer and do your work while you're sightseeing. Like if you go to Paris and there's the Eiffel Tower, don't be looking up. Look down at your computer and finish your report. I think that's what Heather's trying to tell you. So I just second that.
You're so mean. And with that, thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the field or on a plane or in a cool little boutique hotel. Thanks for listening.
See you guys next time.
That's it for another episode of the CRM Archaeology Podcast. Links to some of the items mentioned on the show are in the show notes for this podcast, which can be found at www.archpodnet.com/CRMArchPodcast. Please comment and share anywhere you see the show. If you'd like us to answer a question on a future episode, email us. Use the contact form on the website, or just email chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com. Support the show and the network at ArchPodNet.com/members. Get some swag and extra content while you're there. Send us show suggestions and interview suggestions. We want this to be a resource for field technicians everywhere, and we want to know what you want to know about.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. The Archaeology Podcast Network's chief editor is Rachel Roden. Our executive producer is Ashley Airy. Our social media and newsletter coordinator is Matilda Siebrecht. The APN was founded by Chris Webster and Tristan Boyle on December 1st, 2014. We're supported by our amazing podcast hosts, many volunteers, and listeners like you. Check out membership at www.archpodnet.com/members.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.